You have been brazenly deceived for centuries. The history of luxury and fashion that is taught to us crumbles to dust as soon as one picks up a calculator. To dye one queen's dress purple, it is necessary to destroy 10 million mollusks. To dress one European court, hundreds of tons of gold thread the thickness of a hair, and fleets of ships not found in any registry are required. Where are these giant industrial complexes? Where have the documents on planet-scale logistics disappeared? Why is there not a word in the archives about the supplies of raw materials, of which millions of tons were required? And how is it that with the advent of precise instruments in the 19th century, the quality of fabrics did not improve, but instead collapsed? The official history claims that this was created manually in the light of a tallow candle. Mathematics proves that this is physically impossible. The main question is, who really created these technologies? And why do we still wear the remnants of another civilization?
Hello everyone. Welcome back for another chat with Paula, deep diving on the old world, especially Australia. What's going on? How do we make sense of all this craziness? How you going, Paula?
I'm good, Campbell, and you?
Good.
Yeah, how's all the unveiling, hey? How awesome.
Yeah, it's all happening this year, man. God. Can you
Well,
believe
we
it's
knew
March? It's already March
I
in
know.
2026.
Yep.
How did that happen? That's just
Well,
insane, right?
it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, but what a time to be alive. I keep saying it. It's just, and like you said, you think we'd better be pretty close to everything by now after researching for years, but, we're only touching the surface, aren't we?
Yeah, man, keeps expanding. There's so many questions left. And we were having a chat just before, fashion, this is something we've been asking for a while, right? Like,
Yeah,
who made all these amazing clothes from the 1700s? Why did everyone suddenly start wearing black suits? Where'd they all come from? And the hats and then all
yep.
the dresses we saw in Australia. It's a bit of a crazy question, right? With no answers, really. No one, there's not a lot out there. There's a few, but not much out there on the fabrics, right? Like not
No,
just who made them, but where the fabrics come from, where did the dyes come from, blah, 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 right?
yep.
So I guess
Yep.
I'll give it over to you. Let's just jump into it. I think we've got a few videos as well today. So
Yeah, just to
just,
remind people what we're talking about. But yeah, look, I got a link sent to me regarding a video that, it's AI generated descriptions, but, we're not digital creators, Campbell. I'm not a digital creator. And when I watched this video, I thought it articulates exactly what I've been feeling about fabrics and about dyes and about lace and about threading, embroidery, especially in the Renaissance period. I mean, we've gone from the Dark Ages to the Renaissance period, which all of a sudden is the golden years. I mean, we've gone to Tudor and not even the Tudor dressing was just, I've got to get into the Tudor, but we've
it was a
gone
bit
from
more drab, wasn't it? Yeah, it
it
definitely
was a
wasn't.
bit more drab, but it was
Yeah.
also still a lot of material. So since Mary's comment, my friend, about the uniforms, which is something that's a thread I've also pulled since I last spoke to you, and I've got a lot more information about that. But since our friend said, what about the uniforms? What about the buttons? Where'd they get the buttons from, the threading, the medals, the hats, the shoes, the pantaloons, the stockings? I mean, they were pretty elaborate uniforms for that time, and we were dressing hundreds, thousands of men. And apparently, like I've said before, the Civil War killed more men
Yeah.
than any war that we've ever had, apparently.
Apparently, yeah,
So,
something did, yeah.
so no one's really gone down this little rabbit hole, and it's not a little one. It's like your ocean one, Campbell. It's bloody huge, and it does not stop. I've been immersed in this, pulling threads left, right, and centre, literally. So yeah, it's something that is really been bugging me, and I know when something bugs me, something's going to appear to make me go down a rabbit hole. And this isn't what I normally would do. I mean, my expertise is doing Melbourne and buildings and everything. But I think if you look at our architecture, and again, the labelling of our architecture, you know, the different periods that we're told that they were built and designed and everything, and we just copy them. The textile industry follows a very similar narrative. So the narrative of the Rococo period and the Renaissance period, the Elizabethan period, the Tudor period, the Victorian period, look, there's that many words for these different periods of fashion that, again, it's a programming. It's no different to our architecture. It's exactly the same. It puts our mindset in that time period. And let's talk about time periods for a minute. Why have we got a century for the 19th century when it's the 1800s? For the 18th century, it's the 1700s. Why don't we just bloody call it the time it was, the 1700s, the 1600s? Why does the century have to be a different number? It's more confusion.
I mean, it's because the first century was essentially zero, right? But it wasn't even, because it's in the middle of our history, not at the start. But yeah,
Exactly.
it does. It just confuses things a bit more, right? I mean, they even do it with clocks. You know, the military use 24-hour clocks, right?
Yep.
Like, so they read
Daylight
it all
saving.
differently. And I mean, with the clothes, I mean, the war's a big one. Like all these wars, and like as soon as they start, there's a million uniforms, right? And guns and everything else they need. It's you know, like the COVIDs, right? When we walked out and suddenly every shop had stickers on the floors. Like, what,
Where
they
did it
print
come
them all
from?
last night, did they? Like, where did it all come from?
Exactly.
So it's an interesting one, right? Where does half the stuff in this realm come from? You know, there's a big food thing going on. Where's all the food come from? You know, it's really everything, right? It's, you know, it's
Well, we're going to
almost
look at
sounding like we're
everything.
in the Truman Show, right? And there's big factories underneath us, and they just send the stuff up for us. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, you know, why do we have all these underground, you know, storage facilities? Let's just, you know, at the end we'll discuss all that.
The dumbs,
But we've got. I'm gonna start this with. So we've got a confusion in our centuries as opposed to the time period. We've got naming regarding those time periods. So the programming sets our mind straight to, okay, the 1700s, the people wore this or they wore that, or we had buildings in that time period, and we had different architecture in that time period, and we had wars in that time period. So it puts our mind straight into that place. You know, like time traveling to some extent, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
So
it puts it into the linear time, like that everything's a line. You know,
yes,
so like with the buildings, they were all built at the same time, but for different purposes. That's why they look different. But when they say this was built Gothic and this was built Revival and this was built, you know, blah, blah, blah,
yep.
they can drag the timeline out more.
Yes. And it's interesting you say that, because me going down this rabbit hole, I have listened to the hysterical societies of fashion, you know, and the way the museums, the way they, you know, present the dresses. And there were such slight changes in the dressing, especially women's dressing, especially for the aristocrats, that they only go by the paintings, Campbell, and by literally events that were written at that time, apparently. So that's all they go by. And most of the time they even can't tell what period that particular outfit was from, because we were having different things happening around the world. So Italy started the Renaissance period.
Yes.
And Italy started it very early, apparently from the Dark Ages, when we had literally nothing.
Yes.
We've all of a sudden, boom, we're in the Renaissance period, and we've got all our poets came from that time, all our artists came from that time, all our philosophy came from that time, our humanitarians came from that time, our absorbent fashions came from that time. We had Fabergé, which we talked about at that time, that made intricate clocks and intricate jewellery that had pieces in it that the mechanisms all worked so perfectly in such a small structure of jewelry that, you know, your eyes can't
Yeah.
see that
Even Swiss
small.
watches, right? Remember when
Yes,
Swiss watches were a thing? Like back in the day, they were, yeah, such small mechanics in them, right? Like
yes.
who was
And we had,
making it? You know, yeah.
yes. And what
And
did they have X-ray eyes in that time?
well,
Because
yeah,
honestly, you know, we're
microscope.
talking about a time where people were making hand sewing fabrics, embroidering and
Totally.
threading hair, gold thread, which is thinner than a one piece of my hair that is in perfect tension. We're sewing that in the tallow candlelight because apparently these people that hand sewed had to do it 24/7. They never had lunch. They never ate. They never slept. They never did anything. And yet, you know, their hands would have been bleeding. Their hands would have been just so sore and aching because we're talking intricate work. And then
Mm,
we're not even mentioning the furniture. Like if you look at some of the furniture made at that time, we've got hidden drawers. We've got
yeah.
little locks that unless you know how to, you've got to push a drawer here and turn a key here, and all of a sudden that secret area would open up. We're talking about the great painters, Leonardo da Vinci. We're talking about the Dutch painters. We're talking about time and periods that just exploded in this Renaissance period, which again started apparently with the French. I mean, with the Italian,
The
and then
Italians, yeah,
then the
the
French
Medicis,
followed,
right?
which was a bit later.
Mm,
And my point is going to be, and then we had the Spanish, and we had the Europe, and then UK, England. We probably also at that time most definitely had India and China because we know we had Tartarian buildings over there, and I've no
yeah.
doubt
Well, the
Australia.
Chinese clothing as well, right? That we see back, it's just as elaborate
Oh
as
yeah,
the
and
European stuff.
some of it is so
And
rare that it's priceless in that time. And then we've got Africa also that was
yeah,
also part of this, and they were
yeah.
all different time periods when they came into the Renaissance period. Now that also put us in a time period where the Italian dress, because you had the Mazzini's at that time,
Yes.
family of Mazzini's who were huge at that time, they all dressed in that Renaissance time. Now, Spanish
The
wouldn't
meat,
go
yeah.
into the Renaissance till much later. They still believed in they were still very religious, and their religious terms dictated the dress codes.
Yeah.
England came in later, and France was the next one that joined in with Italy. And you probably had, I mean, Austria, because Austria was a huge empire in this time as well. And
Mm.
Austria,
Was that
um,
Ottoman back then? Or was it
yeah,
Austria in the Ottoman Empire,
yeah,
I think?
and
Yeah.
You had Vienna, and I don't think at that time they were probably already allowing Italy to be an independent,
Yeah,
because
well, back then there was really no Italy, right? They were city
no,
states sort of in that area, but they weren't Italians. They'd call themselves whatever city they came from, right?
yes, yes,
And the
but they weren't even allowed
Medicis,
to speak Italian. Even if they did speak Italian, they spoke an older version of Italian, but they weren't allowed to speak it. They were literally executed for speaking Italian. They had to speak the Austrian language or another Hungarian. You know, there was province in those areas where they had to speak those languages, which all had to be understandable by the Austrian king, the empire.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
we've got
yeah.
these
It's
different time periods in the same time period. So this is
yeah,
why the historical societies and museums can't really determine when some of these particle of dresses were actually made, because they
wow.
overlapped or didn't overlap, depending on the religious structure of that time, the province and the takeovers and the independence of civil war at that time, and the royalty, the aristocrats that were in that time, because they all had, you know, like you've got, I think it was Queen Catherine in England, who had her own style and demanded that women in the courts wore a certain dress, or they weren't allowed into the courts, which meant they missed out on finding a husband. So
Yeah,
you've got a
right.
lot of, the courts were very important at that time. And it was because of the courts. Like we had a
Yeah,
massive amount of aristocrats in that time, Campbell.
yeah. It wasn't
Massive.
courts like we know them today, right?
No, they were courts that's why they had balls, they had special occasions. Everyone had to wear special dresses because the
Well, that's
women,
where you would court someone, right? People got courted at court, and now they've changed it into a bloody place to steal our money and rights.
that's exactly right. But the court was where you presented yourself as an aristocrat for your
Mm.
future husband or wife. So it was like those birds that put all the silver bling and
Yeah, the
everything around them
Belmonts.
so they can
Yeah.
attract a female or a male, whatever. That's what the courts were for. So,
Mm. Which is where we get all the stuff like prom nights, and they're still, it's sort of fading away, but the girls at 16 or whatever coming out and
yes,
presenting themselves as women to the world in their big, gala ball dresses.
yes,
It's
exactly.
it's
And
still, yeah.
nothing's changed really when you think about it that way. We've
Well,
still
no,
got
they
the
they just
old
wear,
thinking, haven't we?
yeah, people just wear less clothes now and get drunk and go and they go to the bar, right? Which again is in the court, right? The bar, interesting.
It, interesting, isn't it? Our
Yeah,
words.
yep,
Um,
yep.
and talk about words. So I'm just trying to show you what the differences are in the time periods and why it was actually quite difficult to determine our clothing to some extent, even though they want you to believe it was. It wasn't, because we're evolving differently in different province and different countries, as well as wars and
Yeah.
takeover bids and
And resources and all types of stuff was going to alter the clothing, but yeah, I mean silk, right?
we're going
Silk
to go
comes out
into
of a
all of that.
silkworm, man. How much silk can you get out of a silkworm? And they're making thousands of these silk garments, right? It's like,
Well, we'll
okay,
go into that in another episode, because what I want to do, Campbell, is there's just too much to cover. So we're going
yes,
to go into the
this
silk
will,
manufacturing. We're going to go into the pigment manufacturing, because pigment or dyes at that time it's just a ridiculous story. So we're going to go into lace. We're going to go into, like I said to you, corsets, which that is going to freak a lot of women out when I go into the corsets, I can tell you.
well,
We're
that's an
going to go,
interesting word, right? Corset. Does it set your core?
yes,
Because it's going around
very well
the
said.
core, right? Yeah.
Yes, that is that has been inverted like you would not believe.
Mm.
We're going to go into the military uniforms as well. I've dug into that one as well. So we'll go into that one. That's a very interesting story. But
Yeah,
what we have to
especially
go back to
World
the,
War One, right? In World War One in America, if you had a certain amount of land, you had to grow a certain amount of hemp, right? Cannabis to make all the flags and the uniforms. And then, of
Mhm.
course, they changed the word cannabis to marijuana and did a vote on it. No one knew what they were voting on, and they outlawed it,
Yep,
basically.
yep. They even outlawed lace.
They outlawed lace.
Hmm. Yes,
Gee.
like I said, it is a unbelievable. But so we've
Right.
determined that got confusion with time periods of the basic Renaissance, because England was actually in the Elizabethan period at this time, when
Yeah.
Italy was in Renaissance time. So we're still in the Elizabethan period in England. So
Yeah.
who's determining our time period? Who's giving us these bloody centuries and the 1700s, 1600s? Who does BC, AD? Who's determining this when we don't even know what freaking time period we live in?
No,
So
no. Well,
it's
AI
it's
maybe.
it's just it's a mind boggle. But let's go to
Let's
wealth, Campbell.
jump into it. Wealth.
Let's
Okay.
look at the word wealth.
The meaning of the
So
word
where did wealth
wealthy.
actually come from? Who
Well,
determined wealth? What was actually part of wealth? So the word wealth actually came very early, and it was to do with well, and sometimes it
yeah.
was spelled WELH, sometimes it was spelled WEL, and it had different spellings. And well actually meant your health, if you were well.
Yes.
And then we had health, which meant that you were prosperous in health and well-being, happiness. So wealth has health has many different terms in that time period as well. And then around this same time period, we collided those two words into wealth.
Yeah.
Well and health.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, health is very, very close, but here it says the archaic meaning of wealth is well-being.
Well-being.
Mm,
So that health and wealth was based on more a spiritual origin and how you were within yourself on every level. Had nothing to do with actual money. It had to do with where you were on a spiritual level, physical, and everything.
mm.
Then we had to turn that word from well and health into wealth.
Yep. Wealth, origin and history, state or condition of happiness, well-being, joy, with care or woe, a sense now obsolete or contrasted. Valuable material possessions, obviously prosperity and abundance, but from well, W-E-L-E, well-being, wealth.
And health.
You get wealth, and then they join it with health, and we get wealth.
Found that very, very interesting where that actual word comes from. So then we've got to determine we've determined that the word where it's come from is actually a metaphor of how we were as a being.
Well, yeah, and
in every way.
we say this often about the old world, right? Tartaria and how it was all built around well-being, frequencies and abundance and, the waters that they drank and all this kind of stuff. It was clearly built to create wealth, right? Health and well-being for its people. And now it's not. Now they've changed the
No.
frequencies and wealth is something to aspire to, right? That we don't have. And you've got to
And
make
the
money.
carrot's always dangled at you, isn't it? And you're always compared to someone who's your age that's got a Ferrari or a mansion or, has got stock and they've got this and they've got that. And that's something that they make sure, your younger generation aspire to because they think that's all they have. Nothing about your own human wealth.
Well-being. Yeah, well, a lot of these people are unhappy, right? They've got all this stuff around them, but they got no friends or family or they're stressed out. But and then it's also it's unachievable for most people, right? Especially when you're starting to talk about tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. But that's what everyone's shown and aspire to. And we get all these people put
Exactly.
up in front of us, all the self-help
programming.
gurus, I've made millions and millions doing this. Oh, I just sat there cross-legged and imagined it and I was grateful and all this money came. But so it's when you feel you can't attain that, that affects your well-being adversely, right? So they've completely inverted it.
Completely. So then you've got to look at, they've changed that name to wealth. Now, what is wealth? So salt was once worth a lot
Yes.
currency because salt kept the food preserved. So if anyone had salt was of huge importance to the food industry and for people to stay alive. So salt became a currency. Then what else? Gold was never really a currency at one stage. Gold was something to admire, like the Aztecs and other huge civilizations in the past. They looked at gold as something to enhance their well-being. It wasn't a currency as such.
No,
it was something that had an energy and gave them, a huge amount of health.
Yeah,
and it was
the
to be admired.
frequency, right? It's a very good conductor of energies. Conductor
Exactly.
again being an interesting word.
Yes, definitely. So we go from gold not really being what we think it is now in the past, and then we go to salt having a currency. We go to tulips. Once tulips was worth more than anything in the world.
Yes, apparently so.
So that the point is that whatever someone can make of value becomes a currency, which we've discussed in our last few. And also while I'm thinking the currency, exactly. And while I'm thinking about it, it's off course a bit, but thank you so much to that lovely viewer who sent you an email regarding the actual the ancestry of the Rothschilds, which ended up that woman, the mother, was a bloody Rothschild as well. So
Yeah, well, you know, they love to keep it in the family, that lot, don't they?
absolutely. So thank you to that person who did a lot of work. It's much appreciated, and we will share that. That was brilliant. So yeah, so wealth. What is the philosophy behind wealth? So we found out it had a different meaning a long time ago, and we could anyone can put a value on something and make it worth a lot. Even diamonds, like diamonds are a dime a dozen. That's why it says
Wow.
dime a dozen. But they've made it.
Diamond dozen. Yeah. Well, yeah. Cecil Rhodes, right? They just made it into something and then released the engagement ring, which had to have a
Yes,
diamond,
yes,
all this stuff. But I mean, with gold, I was just going to say too, like in the old world, it used to be everywhere, right? It was on the
yes,
domes, it was covering things, there was gold leaf, there was gold thread, there was gold, trinkets and ornaments.
yep.
Now they get all the gold, melt it into bars, and go and hide it.
That's
So
it,
no one can see
exactly.
it.
To
So
make it.
was it literally giving off, good vibrations, right?
Well, most definitely, but also too, that's how you make something valuable, don't you? When you
Well, that
can't
as well.
when you can't touch it.
Scarcity. Yeah,
It's
scarcity.
scarcity.
Yeah.
Everything's about scarcity. That's how they've made this world a debt world, because we
Yeah.
never had it before. Like we said earlier,
Yeah.
I found that anyone who made in the past, if anyone made any interest on any currency, they would be beheaded. It
Yeah.
wasn't allowed.
But yeah,
So
usury, man. Yeah, it was. Yeah, a certain group of people got kicked out of what was it, 109 or more countries
yeah.
for that and other things.
Yes. So we know it's very important to know what that word means and why we have accumulated debt over the years and why we're so programmed to think about debt. So fashion was also part of, I believe, that the start of debt, because
Okay.
fashion for the aristocrats was very important. So, and why was it important? Oh, that's another thing before I go into that. When we're
Wow.
talking about the Renaissance times, Regency, Elizabethan times, the Tudor times, the Rococo style, the Victorian style, that sort of thing. There's another word that we don't think about that was also coming in the 19th century or the 1800s, the colonialism.
Ah,
So we had
yes,
we
yes.
had so we could then program our minds to think of that time period,
Well,
because colonial dressing was to do with colonialism, which
you
had to do with countries that they made that were
colonized,
colonized.
colonized. Yeah, yeah.
So it's
Um,
this spell words continuously come up to put us like, when you think about time travel, and we're in the present moment of time travel. If we don't speak about anything, we just speak about what we're, like just having a conversation. We're in the now. But if we start talking about colonialism, about Regency, about, the Edwardian times or AD, BC, we are straight away Roman times. We're straight away morphed, literally on a level that we're in the past, and we're visualizing that time period. It's
yeah.
all by design, Campbell.
Yeah, well, that's why, yeah, we're taught it's linear and not cyclic, or, we all sort of have the concept that there is no time, it's all now. But I mean, we don't think like that, do we? We think in
No,
lines of the future, the past is behind us, the future's ahead of us, and we're on it somewhere along the line, right? That's what they want us
exactly.
to think. I just looked
Yeah.
up debt, just the etymology. So the word debt originated in the late 13th century from Old French word debt or dette, basically something owed, right?
Yes.
So they're saying that debt means to owe. So I looked up owe and the etymology of owe, and what do you think it is? To
Of
own, to own,
the owner.
to own something, to be,
Yeah.
yeah, so debt actually means
To
to
own.
own. the absolute opposite to what we're taught it means. Because debt obviously today is mean you don't have it. I guess
Yes,
you owe someone else. They own it, not you. So
yes.
they've completely messed up all the bloody words.
See,
God.
this is why we're in the situation we're in, Campbell, because we constantly speak in spell words that constantly create what they want, and those programmings are in us, like for generations. So we keep repeating the same words. We're not even aware of using these words, and it's a ritual.
Hmm. Yes.
It's no,
Yeah.
it's no different to a ritual, because me and you might not have the power to change something creatively to some extent. But when we're in like 100, 200, 300, thousands of people saying the same sort of words over and over again every day, that's magic, man. That is
Yeah,
magic.
yeah. Well, yeah, word is sound and sound is frequency, right? That's why they're
Yep.
spells. We're giving out frequency, not and when you speak, you don't think of the intention behind the words, right? So that's out of the,
Yes.
equation. And so we're just, yeah, speaking the frequency. So it's true. And they
Yep.
get us to think different things. I mean, the whole time thing's interesting, right? With this whole timeline switching narrative that's going on. Like, is that how they're doing it? If you're not living in time, right, in like the now, does that mean that they can, adjust the time that you're in? Because we're thinking that there's a past and a future when there's actually probably
It's all
not.
integrated. It's all,
Yeah.
the only thing that sets us in the past or a future, when you think about it, is our clothing.
Well, it's true. I mean, especially, like there's been a lot of videos showing, the 70s and the 80s and that coming out lately, and everyone's always commenting, you can tell us the 70s or you can tell us the 80s because of the
Nothing's
clothing,
changed.
right?
Yes.
And now we seem to be in a time where, I don't know, people just wear whatever they want, but we were doing that by decades,
Yep.
right? But then you go back to last century or before, and they were doing it by centuries, the fashion, so it's, yeah, and
That
fashion,
only
that's how
determines,
it exists, right? That's how they get us to buy all this stuff to change the look and the narrative when we pay for it. And fashion, I don't know, I've always thought it's very close to fascies,
yes,
isn't it?
yes,
And fascinators and things like that, the jewelry, that's very
yep.
fascinating to talk about. So there's all these weird connections in there.
Well, if you look at, like, let's just for instance, just look at this, a well-known street in Paris, or, Melbourne or Sydney. Let's look at it 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's look at it, in the early century, the early 20th century. Let's look at it, in the 21st century, and the same scene, but a different timeline, and take a photo of what is in that street. The buildings are all the same, really, to some
Mostly, yeah,
extent,
yeah.
mostly. But what changes is the transport
Yes, the
and the
cars,
clothing.
definitely. Yep, and the
And the
clothing.
clothing. That's
Yeah,
all
and the
that
accessories,
changes
right?
in that picture. Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you saw a picture of businessmen all holding briefcases, right, you'd know that was 80s or before, right? And
Yes.
then umbrellas, right? It's probably go back another decade or two, and the hats and other. So there's all these things, these accessories too, that tell you what time it is, basically.
Well, that's
Well,
basically what we're programmed to think,
we
that that's
think
that
it,
time period. But as I've said, the historical side in the museums don't even get it right. They only go by the stories of that time and the paintings. So what are the paintings? They're like our photographs. They can be manipulated. They can
oh, and
be,
they have been, like, they've
and
been
they have been.
photoshopping,
So
yeah, since the
it, it,
1800s at
it's,
least.
there's nothing there that tells me that it is a time period of what we're told, because it's not.
Well,
It can be any time, as far as I'm concerned. We could be looking 400 years before the Renaissance and wouldn't even bloody know, but it's only because they tell us that is a Renaissance
and
period
that's when it got
fashion.
introduced. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
then
so
the
what?
photography, right? And they say photography, you can see photography getting worse and back, and then
Yeah,
they say before that there was no photography, it's all painting. So that as well gives you time frames, right?
that's exactly right. And I actually watched a video not a few weeks ago, actually, about that photography had been around a lot earlier than
I
what
think
they're even
so.
saying the earliest photography was.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's other things that also,
Yeah,
anyway,
I
there
agree. I mean,
are other rabbit holes.
there's that famous photo, right? And it's literally called, picture of the first camera.
Yeah.
Well, who took the photo? What'd they take it on? Come on.
So
So
can we
it
look
gets
at those
weird.
shorts now that we've said that about the different time periods? I know they're AI guys. I'm not a digital creator. Campbell's not a digital creator. We know we're human, but, you know, to set the point across, I think these shorts are brilliant and they give us some imagery of these time periods because you'll have a date. And it explains beautifully what we're talking about, the programming that we're given. So that outfit goes with that date, that date. But you'll also see the changes in our clothing, irrespective of the date, how backwards we're going in both male and female.
Yeah, and in everything, not just fashion, right?
Yep, everything.
All right, so this one is called, let's go.
This is a Renaissance period. It's loud. Pitch out the bigger view, that's it. The clothing was beautiful, Campbell.
Wasn't it? I'm just looking at it. It's just so layered as well. So many little intricate bits. Definitely stylish.
Yep.
Colour of his jacket there, that's a bit weird.
I wish men dress more like that nowadays.
I know. I mean,
just stunning.
Yeah, it's hard in Australia though, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because it's so hot. Like you got to wait for winter. You got about 3 months of the year when you can actually wear jackets and shirts and waistcoats. I've got them all, but I don't get much of a chance to wear them. I've just got my Viking shirt on today.
So we have, I think there's one of the queens of France, and then there's another females. But that just shows you, I mean, people don't think about the men's fashion, but men's fashion was just as layered and just as blingy and just as out there as the women's.
Oh, completely, yeah. And the layers, we had a bit of a talk before, there's this, there was, right, a mini ice age back in the 1600s, I think.
Yes.
Because we're always asking why are they wearing so many clothes, especially in Australia, right?
Yes.
Got all these layers on. It's like Australia's hot. Well, it is now.
Yeah, it is now. We don't know from then.
And always hats and headdresses, which have pretty much disappeared, right?
But look at the layers there. Like we're talking tonnages of material, Campbell, in those times. Not just yards, tonnages. Maria Antoinette was unbelievable.
which is
Yes,
so, the suits they use now are kind of, masculine-y. Remember like the
yes,
shoulder pads in the 80s, all
yes,
the
yes.
women, trying to look like men. So,
Yep, there is a women's one there that shows that.
we've got Evolution of British Gentleman and Rococo.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll do the English gentleman because you'll see the layers of velvet. Like that's what I'm going to talk about is the fabrics. Like velvet is that's silk.
Yeah,
So and velvet was it was worn like what they did with
like
velvet,
denim.
Campbell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's it's unfathomable unless there was something else going on, which is why I want to show these videos so that we can really focus on getting right in the nitty-gritty of what was actually happening. That's all embossed with gold. So we're not in those really heavy materials now. The corporation's time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's suit and tie, right? Collars and cuffs, right? Things that you used to bind slaves.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So
Yep, the old tie has a
yeah,
lot of meaning.
it does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ties,
Yes,
collars, and cuffs.
there's symbolism everywhere in the clothing too. But that rococo,
Rococo.
that's actually very good. That's a good laugh.
All right, looks like the village people, is it? Let's have a
Yeah.
18th century Rococo menswear really looked like? Well, it was anything but simple. Lace, crisp white shirts, thigh-high stockings, and heels. Yes, heels were all part of a gentleman's standard outfit. White stockings symbolized purity and nobility, while breeches stopped just above the knee to show off the shape of the lower leg. The more detailed the jacket, the better. Rich fabrics like velvet and brocade were all the rage, and layered cravats weren't just for warmth. They were fashion statements. Coats and waistcoats extended past the hips and were often embroidered with gold or silver thread, catching the light as you walked. The ultimate sign of aristocratic flair. And those high heels, they weren't for women. They were made famous by the king of style himself, Louis XIV. Leather was just the start. Real status came with shoes made of brocade or silk. Wearing them out, that was never a concern. Practicality didn't matter in noble society. What counted was elegance and presence.
Wow,
Isn't that amazing?
that's crazy, right? Now we got what? Tracky dacks and t-shirts.
That's what I mean. They were like the bellbirds. Is it the bellbirds or peacocks and all that stuff? They all had
Bowerbirds.
the bowerbirds. That's it. Sorry, guys.
Mm.
The bowerbirds that they had to put their nests had to be filled with glitter and bling and as much bling as possible to attract the female. Well, it wasn't
Yeah.
just the women that were wearing these layer upon layers of unbelievable fabric. So were the men. And to just put it in perspective now, Campbell, I looked at like this YouTube one that I watched, which we'll play a little bit at the start of this video.
Yes.
And I want to play bits of it in some of my other presentations because yes, it's AI generated, and unfortunately, like I said, I'm not a digital creator, and for me to articulate what I'm feeling and seeing, this video does it so amazingly. And I then fact checked a lot of it, and it's there. There's nothing made up in this video whatsoever. It's just digitally very appealing, and it just states it all quicker than what I can.
Well, this is the thing with AI is, it is helpful, especially, I'm not an artist, so it's good. And pictures are getting harder to find. So
Yeah,
I think as long as it's, we need it to stay original. If someone's putting the information in and then getting stuff out, then that's different. But there's definitely is a lot of replication, shall we
yes,
say, in the AI stuff. And
yeah,
I think it's probably down to all these courses we see, how to make money from AI, and a
yeah,
lot of them is start a YouTube channel, right?
yeah.
And then obviously all these people are doing the course and then putting out almost the exact same videos.
But the thing is, what I find is if it can present what I'm feeling inside and what's in my head, then I'm presenting my journey, because, I've got shit going on in my head like you wouldn't believe. And for me, sometimes, I try and articulate it as best as I can, but sometimes I get frustrated because I can't present it how I want to present it. And yet this video regarding textiles and fabrics and dyes and what's been going on presents it exactly how I would present it if I was a digital creator.
Yeah.
And then what tops that off is I then use my own intuition and feel, okay, has this got anything legit about it, or is it just all bling for my attention? So I went down the road of fact checking a lot of the information that was being said and presented, and it's all there. It's all there in black and white. And this is what I'm going to present to your viewers, but in more detail than what this video can present. So I think it's important, but let's just go into this aristocrat situation.
Yeah, the most important thing is to, be autodidactic, right? Don't just believe something because it's on a video. Right? Check it, see if it's right. Because, there's a lot of info out there. There's a lot of false info, right? That's fine. It doesn't matter. It won't affect you as long as you're thinking for yourself and you're not just blindly accepting what people say. Yeah.
Yep. Use your inner standing.
Inner standing. Overstanding.
That's it. So I'm going to go down the aristocrat side because that's where it's important, because it's something I didn't realise, and I've been in the fashion industry all my life.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise that of the courts, what the courts entailed. So every country had, as I said, an empire. You had the royalty of the UK, of Austria, Germany, Holland, France, Italy, Spain, Africa. It goes on. So, and from those courts, that's just the royalty. So from those courts, you have your dukes and viscounts and viscountesses and lords, and they had all these names. They were barons, and God knows what they were called. That's for England, but in Spanish and Italian and French and everything, they had more names for people like that were in that elitist area.
Shahs and czars and all this kind of stuff.
So when these people had children, they then obviously wanted them to marry other families of importance, because that's, again, wealth. So I put that as wealth as well. It wasn't just money, it was the status. So status was wealth. So they then had to present their sons and their daughters. So if anyone's watched Bridgerton, which I have on Netflix, absolutely loved it.
What was it called?
Bridgerton, the Bridgerton family of England. Brilliant series, absolutely brilliant. But I followed someone who has been following the historical part of that series and the clothing. And that person said something very interesting. They said that at the very start of the series, all these aristocratic girls were presented to the Queen. And it was Queen Catherine, who did exist. And Queen Catherine would then pick her diamond girl, literally would be the one that, was the pick of all the girls. But the dresses that they wore for this presentation at the start of the series was not of that time period and is not what the British aristocracy wore. It was French. So the time period wasn't right. And this girl was saying, as a hysterical costume designer, that they should have presented the right clothing for that time period as would have been presented in the courts. So she went on to then look into that, and she found that the cost of presenting the court dresses of that so-called time period would have been far too expensive for the first scene of that series.
Wow.
So what does that tell you?
Wow. Yeah.
I found that a very interesting, and so they had to just then duplicate a much simpler outfit from the French time period of that time, which was totally different fashion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the dresses they would have been making for the show wouldn't have been original, they wouldn't have had the gold and the pearls. It would have all been fake, right? So it would have been even, we would think, more expensive back in the day to create these things. So
that's
who
my
was paying
point.
for it, right? Where was all this stuff coming from? Was there so much that it was cheap, but I mean, then that changes the whole narrative. Who's making these things?
Well, there is a lot of discussion about the guilds again at that time period,
Guilds,
the masters, and even the painters were all taught by the masters in that time period. So we still have to look at the guild side of things as presented. But when were the guilds? Again, we're given a time period. So when did we really have the guilds? I mean, we're told the 1300s where the guilds started, but I think the guilds comes from a lot older time period, Campbell.
I mean,
a
it
lot
just
older
makes
time
sense,
period.
right? I mean, we get told stories of like keeps, which is kind of the same story, right? There'd be a family keep, which is basically they'd have a big compound where the whole family kind of lived, and that's the same kind of story. So they probably just changed the names again, but it just makes sense that you would do that, and we would do that. We've been taught, trained
Still
out
do
of
it
doing
now.
that, right? We've been trained that, oh my God, you're 20 years old and you're still at home. What are you doing? Get out of
Get the
there.
apprenticeship.
Instead of pooling our wealth as families, we're
Yes,
just
which
splitting
they
it, and
used to
then
do.
all end up with nothing. I mean, there's still, cultures that do pool their wealth, right? And they do a lot better, right? Because
Oh, yeah,
they'll live in one house, like two or three families, they'll all pool in, then they'll buy their second house, and they'll buy their third, then they just keep going, right? Because they're all putting into a pool.
that's right.
Yeah.
So these aristocrats and these courts were very, very, very important to present your children for future kings, queens, dukes, lords, barons, baronesses, viscounts, that sort of thing. You were presenting, and you had to present them in the best possible way and show your wealth. And then those people, they showed an interest, would come to your home and you'd be courted if you agreed to the courtship. So these dresses, for just this, you're looking at 30 metres plus of overdresses. We're not talking about the undergarments. So the women with their dresses, we're talking about an under linen shirt, because it's the linen undergarments that they washed. They couldn't wash corsets. They couldn't wash the overdress parts because it wasn't washable. So the linen kept them, kept it cool or warm. So they had undershirts that they wore. And then the corset would go over the undershirt. And then you would have petticoats that would have depending on, again, the time period, you would have bolster, like cushions on your ass that would tie at the waist. Then you would have hoop skirts, which were made out of bamboo, cane, apparently, flexible timbers. You had corsets that had a particular part of the mouth of the whale, which I'm going to go into corsets.
Yeah, whalebone
Yes, which was
corsets.
part of the inside of the whale's mouth because it was the strongest bone and the most flexible, apparently. So we'll go into all that.
Where were they getting all the bone from? I mean, that's a lot of whales, right? If they're just using a little bit of a certain amount of bone, it's, you know. And by the way, who made all the candles? Because I
Well, we
mean,
had
we must be in
candles,
the
exactly.
trillions.
We were using tallow candles, so the fat of the animals was being used. We're also using pine springs. So apparently, a certain pine had its springs
Pine
were
cone, yeah.
no, not the pine cone. It was the actual. Well, they call it the pine strings, which was
The
springs, which is
needles.
the leaves.
Yeah, the needles. Yeah.
Yeah, the needles. So they'd burn those. We're talking about a time period where we had no pens. We just, used feathers to draw and
quills,
write with.
Yeah.
But we could do all this other intricate work. So the aristocrats each dress. So we're talking, okay, the aristocrats at that time, I have got an explanation of, and we didn't talk about Russia, because Russia was another empire, the Persian Empire, that also had huge amounts of Aristotle people. And Hungary and Poland, actually 20% of their of their country were aristocrats. 20% of the population. Russia was next. They were, I think that was 8 to 15%. And then you go to Italy, they were, like a 5%. And then other places were between 1 to 5% of the population were aristocrats.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, they had some really cool stuff. Like there's some good pictures around of the Russians. There was a ball they had. I'll see if I can find them. That was ridiculous.
Well, we're also told a ridiculous narrative that we had no factories at this time. Yes. We had tailors, and the men would be making all these dresses, and they'd have one seamstress or maybe two if they were lucky, and they were all very small private businesses. That's what the narrative tells us. So when we think about Catherine de Medici, who owned over 400 dresses per year, because we had to change. These women, even the middle class and the lower middle class women, we have to put it in perspective as well, because these women dressed at least 2 or 3 times a day. They had their morning dress, they had their walking dress, and they had their Sunday dress. So a limited amount of dresses for changing per day was at least 3, even for the lower class, unless you were a servant, which then you would receive a uniform if you were lucky enough to be a domestic servant. So, but the aristocrats would have over 1,000 staff, and all those staff had to be dressed. You've got your coachman, you've got your doorman, you've got your kitchen domestics, you've got your dressing domestics, you've got your advisory domestics. They all had to be dressed by the aristocrat, the home that they lived in.
Dishwashers, and of course, all those 1,000 people for each bloody aristocrat takes people away who can actually be doing anything, right? Making stuff.
Yes. So we've got these women, over 400 dresses for her. Maria Antoinette, who was very fashion orientated, who was Louis XIV's queen.
Yeah.
I believe. She also over 500 dresses annually, and she changed 5 times a day into different dresses. And then the worst was the Russian queen, Elizabeth Petrovna, who left this world with 15,000 dresses, Campbell.
Like how? Like, I mean,
15,000 dresses in the Renaissance times.
Yeah, look at this, just one headdress. Is that pearls?
There's pearls, there's lace, there's starch,
Gemstones. I mean,
gemstones.
look at the intricacy down here. It's just covered, right?
Yep. But look at the velvet shawl that she's wearing, which
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
embossed with gold thread.
yeah.
Now,
That's,
Maria Antoinette's wedding dress
yeah,
was satin, pure satin, with pure silver thread running the whole fabric.
yeah, right.
Her
Silver thread,
bodice,
hey?
her over bodice, which means literally they had a stiffened panel that would go over the corset, because literally the corset held all their clothing on their hips.
Yep, okay.
So that was encrusted with diamonds. Literally crushed diamonds were placed in this over bodice with silver thread, pearls, and other gems. So that when she walked out, she glistened with the light.
Yeah, right. They must have been strong too. I mean, look at the amount of pearls on this neck.
The pearls were huge in this time, Campbell. Huge. So let that sink in. For Russia, when there was 20% were the aristocrats, just think of the amount of clothing, the fur, the silk, the linen, the muslin, the gems, the pearls, the diamonds,
Look at that.
the gold thread, the rubies, the turquoise. It's endless what these people wore on their clothing. Look at that crown.
Yeah, that's a good crown. Look how intricate it is, man. Like, who was making that? That's out of metal, right? Who are these amazing metal workers too?
Under tallow candlelight,
Yeah,
because, the
yeah.
narrative, the aristocrats demanded these court dresses to be perfection, and anything else they wore had to be perfection. So we're talking years, Campbell, years of people. We're not talking about machine sewing here. We are hand sewing these articles on a mass production for these people.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
And we're not talking just yards, we're talking tonnage of material.
Tonnage.
Tonnage.
My God, is that a dude
Yes. Which
in a
one?
dress? Can you see that picture? Is that not showing?
Not
Hang on.
really.
I'm gonna have to change. One sec.
So this is only, you've got to multiply that by the royal houses, Europe, the court ladies, the wealthy merchants that we had. France alone required millions and millions of meters of expensive fabric when needed annually.
Sorry, that's a dude. I mean, I'm just
That
trying
is
to.
a do.
Do you reckon his head's been changed or something? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, I reckon that's been added on.
yeah, it does look like it, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is all like, and this is just a few, right? Aristocrats we've had a look at. So you've got to times all this by thousands,
That's
and
why I'm
then
talking about tonnage.
and then that's a thousands of aristocrats, and if they all have hundreds of dresses, we're into the hundreds of thousands, right? If not
Yep.
millions, and that's without all the jewelry, the little staff here, the crowns, like, because this is all different artisans, right? A
Yes.
dressmaker's not making the necklace, and a necklace maker's not making the crown.
No, and you've got the
This is,
furs too, making the furs.
yeah, that looks like that's fur. So it's
Yep.
a massive, massive, massive industry. Oh my God.
It's a massive industry, and I'm going to go in. Oh God, what sort of photos have you got?
No. Jeez, there's another. What the hell? Sorry, these aren't
You've gone
labeled.
into a totally different spot
Oh,
now.
jeez, there we go. Jeez, that almost looks like Queen Elizabeth a bit,
It
doesn't
is
it?
Queen Elizabeth I.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Jeez, look what she's wearing.
So I did send you some coloured ones too, so you could really see the detail.
Did you? Where are they? Did
So,
you? I don't remember seeing those.
yeah, there's, yep.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look
So
for
yeah,
them. I must have
we're
downloaded
talking
them.
if France wanted millions of meters of fabric, so did Russia, so did the UK, so did Poland, Hungary, France, Holland, China, Japan, Africa. You know, this is all a primitive time, people. This is a time where the narrative tells us that most people of this time period, the poorer people, were either in doing agriculture or they're working as domestic servants for these
Yeah,
aristocrats.
exactly. Yeah. So who's making all the, not just the clothing, right? The furniture, like the
The
candles, all the other
drapery,
stuff, the drapery, yeah, the rugs.
the rugs, the tapestries, the bed linen, everything was made from linen. Everything was made from velvet. And velvet is a form of silk. You know, we've got muslin, wool, fur. We've got embroidery. I watched a video on embroidery. So there was a lady who's a costume maker, and she had an apprentice, a young man, who wanted to make a Renaissance vest from pure silk. He wasn't a big man. He was quite a slim young man in his 20s, and he wanted it copied from a painting of a vest that he fell in love with. So they got the pure silk. They went to the only hand embroidery place they could find. There we go. That's some of the intricate work that we're looking at. And they wanted this vest embroidered and gold threaded and beaded with gems as the vest was that he had seen. This company that does a lot of the work for the royalty, for the British royalty, they had to do half of this vest first in machine embroidery. Then they overlaid it with some beading of hand embroidery. And they finished it. It took them, with modern equipment, 400 hours, Campbell, to make this small vest.
Wow.
Now that is a machine, one of the machine families. Am I saying that right? No.
Machini, D'Amici, the
The
Italian.
Medici. That's
Yeah,
sorry,
the Italians.
Medici.
Yeah.
So have a look. This is what they call brocade. So it's
I
velvet
mean, that's crazy, right?
within silk, which is cut. So they have to understand this work is unbelievable, Campbell. So they would have a dye, which they would hand dye the gold, they would hand dye the black, which black was a very expensive colour. They would then hand dye everything in that material and then cut the patterns from that material to give that 3D look.
Yeah, right.
All by hand.
And even the kid looks like it's got gold thread or something through its
Yes.
shirt.
Yes.
That's, yeah, so if a vest took 400 hours, imagine how long this dress would take, right?
Yes, and the weaving on her, that would be all gold thread on her neck.
Yeah, up here, yeah. With pearls.
Yep. And then she's got intricate lace involved in that top part of that sleeve as well. So there is just so much work. There's ribbons in there.
And she doesn't look too happy about it. Oh, geez, smile. You've got a very expensive dress on.
Very expensive. So even our Queen Victoria
Oh, puppy.
had over 2,000 gowns that they knew of, Campbell.
That they knew of.
That they knew of. And Queen Elizabeth I had over 2,000 gowns as well.
That's crazy, right? Like, what happened to all these gowns, I wonder? But I guess with fashion, you can't hand them down, right? No one can be seen wearing the same clothes that someone else has worn.
Well, apparently the
God.
narrative says that they did readjust them at some stage because the material was so expensive.
Mm. Well, you'd
But
think so.
that's one narrative, and yet, they're quite happy to pay someone 24/7 with rare dyes and rare fabrics to make these, dresses.
I mean, look
And
at
not like we've seen, not just for the women. The men were just as outlandishly dressed as the women. I
I
mean,
know,
look
look
at
at the
Louis
width.
the 14th.
Look at the width of this dress, man.
Yes,
Goes out like a foot on each side.
yes, they carried a lot on their hips, Campbell, and that's where the corset came in. The corset carried that weight,
Yeah, right.
literally,
It
literally.
wore up. Yeah, man.
So, that's just the dresses they're wearing. And like I said, there was layers and layers underneath that dress that was also had to be handmade. And then we've got cuffs, and then we've got the satin shoes. There was a time period, the Renaissance period, as you saw in that little short, it was the men that started wearing high heels, not the women. The
Yeah, yeah,
women wore flatter
those
heels.
Dutch looking shoes, which that they're also the pilgrim shoes almost, aren't they? With that
Yes,
big buckle
aren't
on
they?
them, which is Dutch. I think they tell us.
But
Yes,
there's a narrative that tells us that when the women started wearing just a very slight heel, that they would constantly fall over because they couldn't wear a heel. So
because of their
that,
dresses, is it?
no, because the stability apparently of how they walked, they couldn't get used to wearing a heel. Yet the men were
Okay.
wearing higher heels at that time. So that makes no sense to me,
Hmm.
that a man can be more comfortable and, in my opinion, more comfortable in wearing and they were wearing a slightly higher heel than the women had to get used to. So does that mean this will just blow what I want to say at the end, but does that mean that they found these shoes? They
Well,
had
I
to get
mean,
they had to get used to wearing a heel, even the men, and yet the men found them first and got used to them before the women did, because the men wanted them more, and the women said, well, hang on a minute, go find me some of those bloody heeled shoes wherever you found them from,
yeah.
because I want to wear them
Now,
too.
now you're even taller than me. Yeah. Well, I
Yes,
mean, I've often wondered, did they find warehouses full of stuff? Especially when you go into the 1800s and the drab sort of dark, everyone's suddenly wearing a dark suit. It's like, well, where did they? And the thing about the 1800s is all of the clothes seem to not quite fit. Like they have
mm-hmm.
found a warehouse and just handing them out. But when you go back into all this kind of fashion, they look, they all look very custom, tailor-made, don't they? They fit perfectly.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, did they find the shit? I mean, who knows? The stockings, did they find stuff like, did they find the
Well,
dresses?
who made the
Maybe they
stockings?
did. Maybe they were just taking the dresses in, right? And the stockings. Yeah, and
They
that's
hand knitted
interesting.
silk stockings, Campbell, and woolen stockings. Thousands upon thousands of stockings.
And how were they making them? I mean, I don't know. Can you knit stockings or, I don't
I
know
have it.
how.
That's one little rabbit hole that I have to look into, because there's not much
Mm,
on it.
no.
We're just made to, well, they wore stockings. Just accept the fact they wore stockings. Well, the stockings were very fine,
Yeah, yeah,
very, very
yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
what I want to present here is that the wealth, we go back to that word wealth,
Mm,
was the wealth as presented in this all of a sudden Renaissance period happened to be like it's determined by what these people wear and the amount of bling they wear, to
mm.
then tell you, it's like a fucking car. The cars that have got, oh, it's an L35600 or whatever. It determines wealth.
Yeah, yeah. What's the status symbol?
It's a status symbol. So I'm trying to get to a place where I believe that they found something that they could use to present wealth that they kept to themselves, but they found something. And
Well, I think they found lots of things, right?
oh,
I mean, you go back
absolutely,
to the
absolutely.
Renaissance and like where'd the Renaissance come from? You know, that was the Medicis. And
Yes,
that was basically all these writings, you know, the ancient Greek philosopher writings just suddenly appeared.
yes.
And then that's when they brought in what was it called,
Yeah, the
humanitarianism or something.
humanitarian movement. They moved,
Yeah,
everything came in the Renaissance period.
yeah,
Everything,
yeah. It just came out of
everything.
nowhere. So it's
Yes.
very much like they've found a heap of stuff somewhere, right? Some warehouses or something.
That's what we're going to dive into, Campbell, because we know we can't present the what we've come to determine from all of this until we present the evidence.
Mm,
Because the
yes.
evidence, it's mathematically impossible for this to have been happening in a time period, as far as I'm concerned, where we were struggling with all sorts of things that were going on in this time, and all of a sudden we're come out of the dark ages to this opulent time of growth, fabrics. You know, like we've got the, like I keep saying, it wasn't just the clothing; it was the drapery, and you know, Marie Antoinette, like I said to you, with Louis XIV, like the Palace of
Versailles, yeah.
Versailles, that is just out of this world, and that is in the same time period. Her room was wallpapered literally in embroidered silk.
Yeah.
Her
I know,
bedroom,
it's crazy. It's
over a
crazy. Yeah.
four-poster bed, had the same, everything was exactly the same. It was embroidered silk drapery over her four-poster bed. Her bed linen was made out of the same silk. Everything was the same, so nothing looked out. There was only hints of gold everywhere, so that the predominant was this pattern and the liquidity of the silk. They had
Mm,
organza back then too, Campbell, and I don't know if people know what organza is,
no.
but it's like a movable, very thin silken fabric that literally moved with you.
Yeah, right.
It's beyond description what they actually had in that time period.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how tied it was to frequencies and things, because obviously they're covered in gemstones and precious metals and the best fabrics, right? And that's what, again, now we've just got polyester and, you know,
Well, the synthetic colouring came
Rockefeller
out in the
fashion.
1850s, Campbell. Synthetics came out in the 1850s because guess what? They couldn't reproduce the pigments of this time period.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Yeah, and it was Rockefeller, right, who said he wants everyone wrapped in plastic, basically.
Yes,
And now we're literally paying. We're doing it. We're buying these shitty clothes, right?
recycled plastic. It says it
And
on it says it on your tags. You are purchasing recycled plastic.
yep, and
It
that's
might
the
feel
worst
nice,
thing, you know, as
it
far
might
as
look
you,
nice, but it's not. And you've got to
not good
think
for your
also,
frequency.
Campbell,
Mm,
when we're using these natural materials, yes, it's how I personally think if this was found, and I'm going to prove it was, the vibrational frequency these people were getting from these
mm,
materials, no wonder they were creative in the Renaissance period. No wonder they could be poets and painters, and if they were, no wonder it enhanced their vibration because they were wearing clothing that you know that they were
was
connected.
made for that. Yeah.
Yes, the vibration of that was connected for that. But also, you're wearing non-flammable clothing. You're
Okay.
wearing and you're surrounded by non-flammable clothing, Campbell. Your linen doesn't catch on, it takes harder to catch on fire. Wool is fire repellent.
Yeah.
Silk doesn't catch on fire straight away. Velvet doesn't catch on fire. So everything you're surrounded by is protecting and enhancing you on every frequency.
Mm. Yeah, well, that's interesting.
Mm.
And yeah, now we've just got high frequencies everywhere and shit clothes and no protection. Even bed sheets, right, and things like that.
Yes, the linen.
You know, they used to use linen in all the hospitals, right?
Yes.
Because it would literally help with people's healing. And now,
Yeah.
now we think of linen as, oh, that's cheap, you know, kind of
We
crap
can't
kind of
even
stuff, right?
we can't reproduce any of this, Campbell. And I
Mm.
don't think they could either.
So it all went plastic. So yeah, if they couldn't reproduce it, then I mean, I guess this is post reset, but what happened
They
to all the
ran
tech?
out of it.
Yeah, what was happening to all the tech that was making it, all the materials, right? Where were they getting all the materials from? Because that Phoenician purple, is it?
Oh,
What
that we're
was
going
it?
to go
Like
into that.
10,000 snails or something to get
1 million
what?
snails for 1 yard of clothing.
Yeah, yeah. What the hell?
We're going to get into that because
All
that's what I
right.
mean. The evidence is there. Mathematically, this, like the buildings, it is impossible. And also there is not much archives to even show you how any of this was transported, how the fabrics were transported, because you would need fleets and fleets of ships to transport the amount of cloth that they needed in this time period. They needed
Yeah.
a lot of gold. What was the machines used to make the thread, the gold, one hair.
Yeah, you need machines to do that. And you need all the artisans, right? The dressmakers and the jewelers and all the embroiders and everything just to make one dress, right?
So let's just go back to that. And not just the dresses, the upholstery, Campbell, and the
Mm.
draperies and curtains. We've got to think that we've got rugs.
Yep.
All this is woven in the same time period. All this is dyed in the same time period. We've got the paintings all using the same pigment in this time period.
Yeah, same color pigments as they use in the clothes. Yep.
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 Yep. Yet that pigment never faded, Campbell. That pigment got stronger in colour as time grew.
Yeah, right.
The pigment was never affected by humidity. It was never affected by the environment around it. It just got better.
Look at our clothes
We'll
today,
get
right?
into that.
They just fade out into bloody whiteness
We'll
after
get
a
into
while.
that. They
All right.
can't reproduce that pigment. They just can't. They've tried and so many times. So we'll get into that. But when you look at this, so France, before the French Revolution, where they killed Marie Antoinette, and where all her clothing was destroyed, apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
So apparently there was 12,000 noble families in France in this time period, which meant there was over 100,000 individual holdings of nobility status.
Wow.
When our population wasn't very big.
No.
And then in Britain, there was 794 hereditary people remaining. So 150 families in Britain in the medieval times, which expanded hugely from the 17th and 19th century. And Russia, by the 19th century, had 1.9 million nobility people.
A lot of dresses.
Which made 1% of their population. I'll stand correct, 1%. So their population wasn't very high if they had 1.2 million nobility.
12 million, and they've got like, what, 100 million today or more? Yeah.
So Poland and Hungary nobility was huge. So 12% of their population. So if Russia was 1% of the population, they had 1.2 million. Hungary and Poland had 12% of the population that were of nobility.
Mm.
So that is another question in itself, Campbell, because were we all nobility?
Well, I mean,
Were we
yes,
all the majesties of our existence?
of course. Well, of course, originally, don't know when that exactly changed, but yeah, I mean, aristocracy means, I did look it up, where'd it go?
So the overall trend from Renaissance to the 19th century was the highest number of aristocrats in our history, apparently.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it decreased dramatically after World War I when they brought in, which led to the sales of noble lands, and where hundreds of thousands of families held titles, and they were then removed because they brought in the hereditary tax.
Oh, okay. So this
So,
was 1800s, was it? What did you say?
yeah,
19? Yeah.
the 19th century is when they brought in these taxes to get rid of the nobility.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that more and more even now. I mean, like I keep saying, those chateaux, you see, like even the Rothschild mansion is just standing there derelict.
Yeah, well, it's the upkeep, right? Because they don't have the tech to even build this stuff, let alone upkeep it, right? With the same level of tech. It's
Yep.
getting very expensive for them.
And that's why a lot of the aristocrats or the people who've obtained these castles in England and Ireland and Scotland, because there's another province we haven't even talked about, and in France and Italy and Spain, they're either owned by that worldwide, I can't even remember the name because I just can't get my head around that name, the one that have the exhibition buildings. It starts with a U, the world society, some society that's taken over all the, I can't remember the name of it. I know everyone will be going, screaming at me, yelling at me, telling me
Yeah,
what the
such
name
as,
is.
yeah, not Freemasons, obviously.
No. It's a world like heritage listed society that looks after all our,
Oh,
buildings.
just the Heritage Society. That's one, but that's not it, no.
Oh no, it's got the exhibition buildings in Melbourne. It's got the Taj Mahal. It's got just about everything that you have to pay to go in there now to see any of it.
Oh, yeah,
But
it's the
anyway,
gatekeepers of history.
yes, exactly. So, and that's why some of these people that still have these castles from their family, they have to open them up because they can't afford to look after them. I mean, some of them live in
Mm.
squalor in these buildings. But
Yeah. I've seen, yeah, and they cost a fortune to just, I mean, bloody King Big Ears, I think that the taxpayers in UK pay it's something like 30 million a year just to upkeep his castles
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah,
It's ridiculous, right?
yeah. So, what's happening at this time? I mean, yes, we've found things, but were we all this aristocratic society?
Well, yeah, aristocrat means the rule of the best or, the best rule, which really that could apply, if we go back to the guilds and the keep type things and family
Yeah,
centered kind of houses, because that's the other thing we get is the house, right? The house
yeah.
of whatever,
Whatever,
right?
Lord. Yep.
Yeah. It's the same kind of concept. And, the father or the mother, the matriarch and patriarch become those with the best
The air.
rules for the family, right? So I think, yeah, this whole thing that there's only a few that can be
It's not
kings and
true.
queens and all that. No, exactly.
It's not
So
true.
no, it's crap. This whole peasantry,
Yeah,
serfdom, because it doesn't make sense. Like how do one class live in luxury with all this stuff and the other half are uneducated, can't read or write, no skills, no trades. So who's making everything, right? The story is
who's
literally we're
making it
out in
all?
the fields with sticks, growing potatoes or something.
That's it. It's so extreme, isn't it? It's extreme from one side to another, like extreme left and extreme right. It's it's
Mm.
it's it just doesn't. Again, nothing adds up.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
even if we had the poverty and we had, you know, the dressmakers and we had the embroiderers and we, you know, like people will say to me, Paula, you know, the ladies in waiting, like we haven't even talked about the ladies in waiting in the courts. The ladies in waiting, that's all they did all day was embroider. Well, hey, yeah, they might have, but at the end of the day, were they embroidering 24/7? And was, you know,
and
how were they embroidering? They weren't embroidering huge, vast
no,
amount of material, for God's sake.
even if they were embroidering 24/7, they'd only be able to make clothes for themselves.
Yes.
Like there'd be no excess, right? Because it'd take them months and months and months to make one dress.
Yes. Yeah, it's
So,
just the mathematics don't add up. It's like
mm,
also I watched another costume maker because they're fascinating because they like to reproduce all this stuff and then they go through everything. Some of them do it cheap and easy, which is understandable, but you know, you've got to go by what is expensive now. They can't afford to be making some of these costumes because they're selling them cheap. Some of them, though, want to reproduce exactly to the T, like that vest I talked about. There's another woman who has spent her whole life researching lace and learning how to make lace. And I won't go into the details of lace because that's a story within itself. But she remade a 1 by 1 metre lace shawl.
okay.
35,000 hours, Campbell. 35,000 hours it took her to reproduce a lace shawl as exact as what it was in that Renaissance period.
What?
35 hours.
35,000. Yes. That's crazy. But that's
It's
just because they're
crazy.
so intricate, right?
And
So,
they are precise to the absolute millimetre of a pattern. And the symmetry of the patterns are unbelievable. And when you see how they actually supposedly made lace, again, mathematically impossible to have produced
so
the
what's lace
amount
made
of
from?
lace that was required. Eh?
Is that from cotton?
It's
What
from
is
linen and silk.
from linen and silk? Okay. So basically threads and they've got to build it
Yes.
up and build it up and build it up.
But we're talking, you know, when I talked about the thread of gold and silver had to be one hair strand.
Yeah,
The tension of that hair strand had to be exact because you didn't have time for error. Apparently, when you made these clothing, you couldn't have gold thread snapping. It had to be exactly the right tension, exactly the right thread capacity. When you're talking about lace, we're talking about thinner than a hair.
It's definitely sounding like they must have needed machinery, right? They must have had machinery, especially to make the gold thread, but then to thread them and to make the lace, right? I mean, but then every costume seems to be unique as well. So
Yes, every costume, you could not mass produce a costume. It had to be unique. Yes, you had a certain style that you wear for day wear, you know, for your morning, because you had a dress. Females and males both had morning breakfast dressing. They had day dresses for different occasions of the morning and the afternoon. You would have clothing that you wore to walk outside in your garden. You had an outfit that you wore to be seen in public if you went out into the village or, you know, to present to another home. And you had your evening attire, and then you had your evening bed clothing, and then you would have your formal wear for occasions for formal dressing, like your balls and you know, and just having dinner at
and this
another
is
person's home.
and most of the time they tell us most of the streets were just mud. And they can't wash these garments. So like that and all the women's
And we're
dresses are
wearing silk
dragging on the
shoes.
ground and
We're wearing silk shoes, Campbell, with silk buttons. We're not even wearing metal. We're wearing lace. We get specially made lace buttons, specially made silk buttons, velvet buttons, embroidered buttons, gold leaf buttons. It's endless, endless.
Yes, geez. All right, so what do you think? How are they doing this? Because if it's not machines, what is it? Is it those little elves from that fairy tale where, you know,
they make
the shoemaker and they all come out at night and make stuff perfectly?
Well, you know, who knows? We don't know enough about alchemy, so maybe there's alchemy is involved. I haven't even gone down that road, but it's definitely mind-boggling. We have not even touched on captains, lieutenants, the clergy who also wore unbelievable amounts of clothing, layers and lace upon lace and embroidery. We're not talking about ruffled collars. Now, a ruffled, stiffened collar that was worn in the pre-Renaissance time, it was a Tudor style from memory. Every ruffle around the neck needed 6 yards of material, which is, I believe, to be almost 13 metres of
6
cotton.
yards?
6 yards. I believe that is around 13 or just over 12 metres of material. Because the ruffles would be layered, so they'd have 3 layers, and they would be brought in and pleated, and then stiffened. They would then be washed and put in the sun. This is how they explain it, and then re-stiffened until this collar. This is one layer, another layer, and then another layer, because a lot of them were 3 layers of stiffened collars.
Yeah, because a yard's just under a metre, so it's 4.5 metres is 6 yards, but maybe that was how much they needed to do the triple layer. Yeah. So like 12 metres or whatever for one
ruffle.
Is that what they call it? A ruffle?
That's it. So that's a lot of material. And a lot of them in the courts at that time all wore ruffles. And if they didn't have, and I think a lot of it was cotton, it was either cotton, hemp or linen. But there was a lot there that actually chose lace, stiffened lace, that was very, 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 very fine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's that like see-through lace as well that we see, because lace is both, right? It's the
lace was done in,
but then it's also that see-through-y kind of stuff in between it. Yeah.
But there was many different forms of lace making, which I never knew, and some of it was just horrendous. So, I'm at a lot of different opinions of how we got here in this Renaissance time. Either we go by that gentleman's, you know, his video is amazing, that was sent to Get Your Shit Together, the ship captain, who talks about the small
Captain
ice age.
Yeah.
Yeah, the small ice age in the 16th century.
Yes.
Where it didn't affect everywhere. And this is another thing we've got to understand. If if we had resets, maybe we had resets of different proportions at different times. And sometimes we had massive resets that evolved most of the realm. So if we had a very small ice age somewhere in between Europe, Friesland, Greenland, along the Antarctica, you know, different parts. And they were, like, I spoke to you about my thoughts on the star cities and the star forts. And star cities being on islands, literally in the middle of the ocean. So they could be star cities that have been what was left of a country, of an area, and the rest was under the ocean.
Definitely.
So if we look at the idea that we had star cities, and like I've said, maybe those cities, they were gilded cities that were producing.
Gilded, that's an interesting word you've used, by the way. Gilded cities.
Yes, that were producing certain fabrics, certain
Mm.
dyes, and that was their specialty. And they could spend their time doing that, and they had the facilities to do that, and they had the know-how and the transportation to get the pigment that they needed to that one facility. Because if you think about some of our buildings, Campbell, even, I'm going to go right out here now, even look at the World's Fair, that we are led to believe that some of those 63, 70 thousands of acres of building were just because of showing off people's wares. Maybe they were warehouses for these fabrics, for these miles and miles and miles of gold thread, silver thread, embroidery, lace, already made dresses, clothing, stockings, buckles, shoes, hats, uniforms.
Yeah.
That were made specifically in these cities.
Well, they could have been guild cities, right? The whole city could have been the dressmaking city or whatever, right?
But we weren't doing them by hand. We had the technology to do 3D printing. We had the technology to do all this on a mass production system. And then we would store them in these. Why did we need these buildings of 60,000 acres? We're not talking squareage. We're talking acres of buildings under one roof.
Under a roof, yeah.
To show, maybe that was what we were showing at the World's Fairs, what was left over.
For sure. There's photos.
This period of our time.
There's photos of the World's Fairs where you see in some of the halls, and they're just stacked with all this stuff, right?
We were the Majestics.
I think they found it. So
we were the Majestics. That's why Her Majesty, His Majesty. We were the Majesties. We were the Majestics.
Yeah. So are you saying that you think all these dresses were 3D printed? That's what you're saying. Well, I mean, why not, right? They can print houses already. That they're using plastics, they're using rocks. So, yeah, could they print with silks and all these things?
When I go in, the thing is that, that's the conclusion that I've come to. And I believe that we weren't these primitive, poverty-stricken, pissing in the streets, throw your buckets out to the, plagued people. We were the Majestics, Campbell, and we produced this beautiful clothing so that we could create, so that we were in our ultimate of well-being, of health, of frequency, of vibration, and it was all taken from us. And that's one thing. And I believe it happened, but it didn't believe in the time period we were given. And then you had the inversion and the parasites that would come along, and they would find this. They would find the warehouses. They would then wear the clothing and act and take on the persona, the name stealers. They would take on the personas of the Majestics, of us, and they would show their wealth by this clothing that was already here.
Not the abundance they had, but the
illusion.
Individual clothing that they didn't make or know how to make, and that we no longer had. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they could just have a scanner, right? You walk up and you turn around in the scanner, and it can then make perfectly fitting clothes for you. Right,
Campbell, there's no other. When you look at everything I'm going to present, there is no other understanding of how it was done. There's no explanation. And, and if we did have a reset that put everything underwater, and we had storage homes, and they raided those storage homes when everything settled, and they knew where they were, and they raided those storage facilities and then presented them to us as world fairs. And as we know, the tech has been taken away. So the clothing they found. So what of a better way to present wealth and what we needed to aspire to? And we became the poverty packs. And, we've lost our memory of who we were. What's a better way to show wealth and the Aristotle, and to, if you want to, you have to do all this to become this, which you're never going to become. And nothing's changed. They just dangle the carrot at it.
They're still stealing all our ideas, right? And look at how many
carrot dangling system.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're the invaders, right? They've come in and stolen everything. And
so our frequency, if you put all the clothing and the frequency of those clothing that we probably once had, that we were surrounded in, we not only wore it, it was all around us, and our healing centres were all in symmetrical windows and towers, and in our architecture, we were surrounded by healing frequencies, of creative frequencies. Everything was creative. So if we did have this, I'm not saying the Renaissance didn't exist. I believe that was our majestic time. If you want to call it the golden years, that was our golden years. And they took that away from us, but it wasn't in the time period they gave it. It was much, much earlier. And that no wonder we were creative, and no wonder we painted the way we did, and we had everything that happened at that time. And it was all stolen. The paintings, everything was stolen and represented.
Yep, I totally agree with that. I'm just looking up. Renaissance means birth. So the Renaissance was literally the rebirth.
Exactly.
So it's because it's got re in front of it, to do again, right? So it's not like they just came up with all this stuff.
It's
they're
the
doing
illusion.
Something again. It's the illusion. They've found it all, and they're introducing
they're
it. They're doing it again.
They're reenacting our majestic time period. They've put us in a different time period where we've got the amnesia. We don't remember, but we remember. You know how we remember? We're remembering now, but we're also remembering in our frequency. Like I keep saying, we are not our ancestors. We are our ancestors.
Well,
that's why we feel it. We feel this, and that's why our hair stands up, and that's why I constantly say intuition, gut feeling, because that is our true soul self. The meat suit, the true soul self is within, and until we listen to what's within us and trust that vibrational feeling that's saying, oh my God, my hairs are standing up, this is feeling so right. Yes, that was us, and we were the majestics, the majesties of this realm. And they've stolen everything from us. Our homes, our architecture, our paintings, our jewellery, our music. This is all the music time too, don't forget. This is all our philosophers, don't forget. So,
well, look at instruments, right? The orchestras with all these amazingly intricate, instruments, like hundreds of people.
Look at orchestra. What did you just say there? What's that word you just said?
Orchestra.
Orchestra. It's orchestrated.
Orchestrated, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And the conductor.
It's all orchestrated, the whole bloody thing. It's all, they have seen our existence. They have seen how we've lived. They have hated how we've lived, and they've wanted it. And now they have got rid of us by different catastrophes and resets, and they've repurposed our lives into their lives, and we look up to them now as the Elite elite.
The elites, yeah. Well, I mean, in the Bible, it says, God says that he's a jealous God. What's he jealous of?
Exactly. And how do they keep, and I keep saying our memory has an expiry date. So all this programming of time
Oh,
periods
yeah.
and dress time periods and everything is to keep us in the programming of not remembering. So the
Mm.
moment that starts to fall, which it is now, and we're remembering all right, and I remember it so fiercely and so passionately within myself that no one can take that away anymore. I remember a lot, and this feels right. This feels that this is the missing piece of the puzzle of our architecture and everything. And the programming of these times isn't our time, it's their time. They're
Yeah.
telling you that's how they dressed in the 1700s and the 1600s. Not us. We had it way before them, and they made us forget with trauma, chaos, and division.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree, I mean, this is the overlay, right? This whole spell casting, why they need the education system, the entertainment system, the news, to keep us in the trance, right? To keep, because we're creating it, right? So if
Yep.
we believe their narrative, and then we create their narrative. But
Yes.
but it definitely seems to be breaking, right? This whole, overlay. So it's got big cracks in it now. We're seeing sort of a lot through it, and it's being shown to us right now in the apocalypse, right? That they are just a bunch of thieves and liars and, you
Yes.
know, debaucherous bloody
They want our lives.
psychos.
Yep,
Yeah,
they want everything. They hate us that much that they want to be us
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because we are the creator, and they'll never take that away from us ever. And look what
No,
we created. Look what we created.
yeah, I
This
agree. We created
beautiful time
all,
period.
yeah, all the old world stuff, all the tech, all the
Yep.
buildings. Yeah, that was, yeah, from us, not them.
We're
That's for
living in
sure.
their illusion, Campbell.
Mm. Yeah, I'd
We are
agree
living
with
in their
that.
illusion of what they want from us and how we once were. That's what we're living. We're not
Mm.
living in like a matrix or anything. We're just living in their frigging illusion of the programming that they've made us believe with their hysterical societies, their museums, and all their gatekeepers, which keep putting time stamps on everything so that we believe that that is them. It's not them.
Mm. No. All they can do is take what we've done and change it round, right? And obfuscate it and turn it upside down. And but they can't create anything, right? Everything they give back is already been created.
Well, that's why they can't create the fabrics now.
Mm.
They can't create the pigment, which I will go into next because it's absolutely fascinating where the pigments came from and what has happened with the pigments. And the
Yes.
pigments for all the fabrics and all the embroidery and all, like, the pigments were all the same. They used it in the thread, even we're going to go into the needles, Campbell, which is just the most basic part of it.
That's a good yeah.
How
Yeah.
were all the needles made? How was all the sewing needles made? You've got no idea how many pins were required, the narrative tells us. How
And
were all
very,
the
very
pins made?
thin, I'm thinking too, right? They sort of show us, oh, they used to be wood and they were this thick. But when you
Mm-mm.
see how intricate the materials are, that doesn't make any sense.
No, no. So like I keep saying, you've got paintings that are made in such a precise, this period, there's no other paintings were painted as they were in the Renaissance times. And they
No.
were so particular in every detail, and yet they were being painted so in such a minute, small parts that the magnifying glass couldn't possibly have been. I don't even think the magnifying glass was even at this time. I have to look at that actually, because
Well, telescopes
how are we
was
seeing? Did we have
1200s, yeah.
magnifying glass? Did we have magnifying eyes at this time?
Well, I mean that they did have telescopes, but that we're told that was in Islamic countries only until the Renaissance, I guess, in West. But yeah, none of it makes a lot of sense. I mean, and all these paintings, the only, way we date them is from the dates they give us,
That's
right?
exactly right.
So these could
Exactly
be from a
everything.
time a long time ago, right? Showing it the world has as it was 500, 600 years ago or more. We don't know. Same with photos. All we
Yes.
know is whatever name and date they
Whatever
put
they
on it.
stamp.
Yeah. So
Well,
we don't
you
know.
proved it. You proved it in the 1493 maps that you were doing. You could see that other people had tried to draw on those maps something
Mm.
else
Yeah.
because the ink was different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
On the Monty. Yeah.
yeah, everything's been manipulated for us to believe that we have to aspire to these parasites, yet they aspired to us for God knows how long.
Well, they completely rely on us, and this is the thing. If we all just turn around and said, "Nah," they'd disappear. They'd lose their food source. They'd lose their
They'd lose
slave force,
everything.
right? They'd
Yes,
have nothing because
yes,
they completely are because they're a parasite. They're completely reliant on us, the host.
yes, absolutely. So it's not really out there. I mean, like I said, maths doesn't lie. So when I present the evidence here in the next few series, and like I said, it's totally out of what I usually do. Usually I just want to focus on Melbourne and the buildings and everything. But
Mm.
I've been drawn to do this because there's just so much here of evidence mathematically that makes no sense. And the only conclusion you can come to is the conclusion that we've come to, as far as I'm concerned. Other people might have a different opinion, which is great. I want to hear the opinion. But for me, we have been given an illusion of something that does not exist, which we know, but this concretes it even more that, no, total, we live in the parasite illusion.
Yeah, I agree totally. It's like that. Remember that very early Star Trek episode where they found that lady who was, and she was like this young, beautiful, thing, and
Yes,
the captain, had an affair, and they were trying to get them to mate and everything, and then at the end you see all those grey-looking dudes with the big heads, and it's
yes,
just an illusion, and the lady's actually really old and all bent up and broken from a crash, and
yeah.
that's the overlay, right? They just get us to see it a certain way, and that's what we see.
And
Because,
our mind, I mean, we can see so much more. And that's why some people now are starting to waken up to that, because we are seeing and feeling more. But it also takes me back to the old stories, Campbell, which I wrote about in the second edition, where it was very popular in the 1800s and 1800, I have to say centuries because it's just the 19th century and the 18th century,
yeah,
where we're going to lands, like different lands. So we're going to the Republic, the book that was written about the Iron Republic,
yeah, yeah.
the book that was written about the something god,
Oh yeah, the smoky god, yeah.
the smoky god. And then you've got Marco Polo's journals, who he was someone who was
Yeah.
very, very well respected as an explorer, and yet he was made to be a dickhead in the end, and not. And they make that stupid song about him, and
Yeah,
they
it turned
made him
into a pool game.
yeah, and they made him like a mythical of no importance anymore. His
Yeah.
maps were bullshit. Everything was bullshit, and yet his journal talks about worlds of this type of beauty, of cities
Mm,
everywhere that contained gold and silver, like
yeah.
everywhere. And the clothing was beyond belief, the diamonds, like you talk about your crystal cities, it was all here.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Like Gulliver's Travels as well. That's
Yes,
another one we're
Gulliver's
told is a
Travels.
fairy tale.
Yes, and there was
Um,
like Jules Verne when he talked about, the time traveling and, Journey to the Centre of the Earth. He talked about different cities and different people of different cultures that he met. And,
mm,
and we were even talking about, like when I spoke about the islands, I know we're going off track here, but when I spoke to you about that map again you were looking at, and I mentioned to you earlier about the chains that were hanging off these star cities.
yes, I'm going to have to go and have another look at that. I missed them, but
I believe they were to move these islands. So if they were moving islands and these islands were star cities that were making this clothing, if we were manufacturing this clothing with tech, did they have to move these islands to protect themselves now?
well, we definitely have disappearing islands.
Oh,
You know,
everywhere, and then they
yeah,
resurface again. It's like the
yeah,
cities that are in the sky that we've got paintings of.
yes,
Vast
yes,
cities in the skies. People have, Charles, what's his name? Charles,
Dickens,
the
no,
one that wrote, I can't remember his name. I've got all his books. He talks about, he's the one that journalised all the sightings, weird sightings, over the centuries and the time period we're even talking about. And people are seeing cities in the sky, floating in the
yeah.
sky.
The some appeared over China. Remember what was that like
Mm.
5 or 6
We've
years
seen them
ago? Bit
recently.
more. Yeah, yeah. It wasn't that long ago.
Yes. So,
There's definitely a lot of talk about that. Yeah, Elysium, right? That movie that kind of shows us that kind of thing.
yeah, but and also like those chains, like I was saying, Campbell, they were too thick. You can't lift up, people can't lift those chains up. And why are they in the water off a star city? And any boat that came in is not going to be that close. And also, they've got their own anchors. So why would you need these big chains? So if we
Mm,
think about us having huge tugs that pull huge ships now, like cruisers full of thousands
mm.
of people, why could we not have huge tugs at that time that pulled islands that were threatened into another area? Because,
Yeah.
like I said, Basil Island is a perfect example off the Wales coast. Basil Island has been seen for centuries by explorers, has been diarised by explorers, has been drawn and noted on maps, and yet every 7 years it disappeared. And yet
Mm.
people lived on this island. They would appear and reappear. And now
Yeah.
it's a myth. Now it's a myth, just like Marco Polo's cities is a myth.
Yeah. Well, I was
So,
watching something last night and they were talking about he was talking about how we name everything. So when we see a tree, we think the word tree rather than
yeah,
saying what we're seeing. And he was saying that in some places, if they don't have a name for a color, then those people don't really see that color.
mm-hmm,
So it's the same kind of concept, isn't it? If we're told
it
these
is.
things don't exist, then does that mean that we don't see them? Because we don't know. Kind of like the American, what we told the story, the American, South American Indians, when they saw the boats and they couldn't see
Yes,
them
yes.
for a few
They didn't know what it
days
was.
because they didn't know
Yeah.
what it was. Yeah, yeah. So it's
Well, if you think
interesting, right?
about that,
We've all been MK Ultra, I think.
well, when you think about when you have a baby, you're telling them colours, aren't you? Well, that's the
Yeah.
sky. The sky is blue. This is the colour blue. The ocean is blue. The grass is green. That's the colour green.
Mm,
We're already programming our children.
totally.
Yeah.
That's because that's all we know, right? Because we don't know how to live in the now. Because
No,
we're being taught scarcity, which means we have to
that's
think about
exactly right.
tomorrow or we might go without.
Yep. Have I gone dull?
No, no, you're still
Oh,
there.
that's, I've gone dull on my phone, so I
Oh,
don't know
no.
what's going on here.
Oh,
But yeah,
all right.
we program our children to see what they need to see. So so what we're doing is we're minimising their ability to see on a frequency and vibration, as opposed to just seeing with their eyes on the outer.
Yeah,
We're promoting the outer
yeah.
under,
Making the world physical. Yeah,
understanding of what the world is, because
yeah.
that's how we've been programmed. So it's no wonder that, these things are very hard for people to get their head around.
Mm.
Very hard.
Yeah, man, the programming is strong. Like
It,
it's really strong, right? And everything's externalized, if it's, and they literally teach us this, right? With their scientism, if you can't touch it and smell it, well, it doesn't exist,
exactly.
which means none of our thoughts exist. Science, explain
Hang
that
on.
one. Oh, she's run away.
Well, that's exactly right. So we're part of, we've been trained or taught to continue a programming as parents
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah,
the
yeah. We're
time.
just passing it down. I
And
know.
by doing that, we're stopping, because, the child is born totally innocent and pure. And that child is born up until it used to be 7, I think it's now 5, 1 foot in the spiritual world and 1 foot in the reality of this realm of what we're in. So that's why children see and feel. They feel they feel their frequency is still there, and they still see other realms and other things, because they're not solid. They're not solid here yet. It's not until the programming that we give them, that we've been taught, starts to program that the spiritual and the more inner standing of a being and the soul, we start to remove that by teaching our children what we think they need to be taught, because we don't see them as a being that is able to give us anything, because they're just a baby.
Yeah.
They have to be taught to speak. They have to be taught to walk and talk and to communicate is coming from us, whereas we're not actually sitting back and listening or observing how a child actually can communicate to us.
Yeah, or listening to what they've got to say, right? They come through with a lot of truth and wisdom, but it's just a kid, right? But yeah, and then they knock it on the head at school, right? Come in, leave your imagination and your imaginary friend at the door. Nothing like that exists.
Yes.
Come in and we'll tell you what does exist. And if you disagree, then you're the naughty kid and you fail.
Yeah, go in the corner and put your hands on your head like I used to get told.
Yeah, face the corner, I know, right?
Or
just
or you
go
get the
straight
strap.
to the principal's office.
Yeah, to get the strap. So it's smashed out of us. It starts with our parents, and then it gets fully put into us over school. And then we have more big lessons when we leave school. And then the introduction of, corporation, and then trying to fit in with other people and how they've been brought up.
And the school, which is a school of fish, which always move together. We had uniforms, which means all the same. Yep. And they put us in classrooms so they can split us into different classes, the smart kid, the dumb kid. And then we end up in university, right, which is, the one verse, like the one narrative, you could even say, right? Everyone comes out at the other end like thinking they know everything, but it's just their one narrative.
Well, actually, the universes are the most scariest indoctrination system, because a lot of our revolutions or how we think about society is all done on that student university side, because they're the ones that start to promote it outside of the university. And they're the ones that go to our museums and our hysterical societies, and they become the gatekeepers. So the university is actually a really, really
Look what's happened with the trans agenda, right? That's all come out of the universities. I was looking into Iran and the 1979 coup. That all came out of the universities. Like, and most of these things, when you look at regime change and social, it all comes out of the universities. They go for the young kids, especially the ones that are a bit smarter and probably more programmable, have a bit of standing, and then they just all come out with this new narrative, and they just change,
That's where feminism came from. That's where the hippie revolution came from. That's where burn your bra came from. That's where everything has come from, the university education. Indoctrination of humanity.
And then all it produces is people who don't really know what they're talking about, but they're suddenly experts, right? So everyone looks up to them and says, "Oh, you're so smart. You can repeat exactly what they told you."
That's it. You've got knowledge. You don't have knowledge unless you are a university graduate, unless you have a Bachelor of Arts or some form of degree. I'm not going to listen to what you have to say because you're not intelligent.
It's so dumb, though. Like,
is just.
Then you ask these people. So, who invented maths? Were they a mathematician? Who invented music? Were they a musician?
Exactly.
It doesn't take much thinking, does it?
It doesn't take much thinking. So
crazy.
I think this is going to really open up some eyes here, and it's something no one has talked about. No one has talked about, where our textile industry has come from, where our painters have come from. Why was the Renaissance period so absolutely, such a golden age for creativity and everything that we philosophize over now?
Yeah, post reset, I think is what it was. Just finding and stealing all the stuff from before the reset. That's what it sounds
like. I agree, Campbell. I agree, and I think if we could go into those oceans we would find a lot more.
Yes, indeed. So make sure you check out the podcast, guys, Tartaria Australia, The Ocean Talk, and get our magazine, our newspaper. Links
Oh,
below.
it's beautiful. Oh my
Yes, I saw
God.
you posted that you got yours.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. I
Yes,
just
and
love,
there's a
oh,
special part in this one, so we
yes,
won't say
yes.
anything. You've got to get it yourself and have a look. It's a
Oh,
special
guys,
invitation, is what it is.
yes, something, yes. It's just beautiful. Look, it's a credit. It absolutely, the creativity, there we are. We're in our own Renaissance period.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're starting it, right? So it's edition 3 already, but everyone's loving it. We're getting a bigger audience all the time. So check it out, guys. But
And
yes,
where's the
it's
next,
sorry.
where's the next event?
Yes, next live event is Adelaide. So Adelaide
Woohoo!
people, tartariaustralia.com. Go on there and you can get your tickets. I think we've got the venue sorted. Adelaide's really hard to find venues yet, and they're really expensive. I don't know what's going on there, but
Yeah.
yeah, apparently Adelaide's there's a lot going on in Adelaide. We'll just say that, right?
Well, on
But
every level, I think, Campbell.
I know, right?
Mm,
But yeah, go grab your tickets and come and see us. Just did Rockhampton. That was really cool. Went off really nicely. Met a lot of cool people. Um,
awesome.
and then we're doing another 6 shows. So all on tartariaustralia.com.
And then you've got your lovely holiday too.
Yes, we've got that as well. Watching the world at the moment. Hopefully it all dies down
Mm,
because it's kind of right on the border there, but we'll see what happens there. So, the Middle East has kind of exploded in the last few days. Thanks,
it
small
certainly
hats,
has.
and so we'll see what happens there with that. But hopefully that's in 2.5 months, so hopefully everything settles down. But
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
lostworldadventures.co.uk. You can go check out all that stuff as
Oh,
well.
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
So yes, so
Well,
there's the conclusion of what I want to present. So please
cool.
comment, everyone, because I really want to know how you're feeling about this subject matter, because it's totally out of my normal stuff, but I'm guided to do it, and I'm glad I'm doing it because no one's touched on this subject. No one's even put the two things together. And I
Mm,
think it's a very, very important subject. Even if you're not into fashion or fabric, it's not about that. It's about how,
yeah,
how, and the mathematics, it just does not add up like our architecture.
totally. So yeah, if you've got any more info as well, leave it in the comments. Let us
Oh,
know.
please do.
Yeah, Paula definitely goes through all the comments. I probably don't get through all of them. But yeah, leave it all in the comments and let us know your thoughts and any info you can add to the story. And I guess we'll be back for part 2 and probably part 3 and maybe part 4 of this one because
Well,
it's
there's a
going to
few
be a bit of a
parts because
deep dive. Yeah.
the next deep dive we're going to do is I'm going to do the pigments
Pigments.
and history behind the pigments and where the pigments came from, how they were produced, and where they were found.
Yeah.
So we're going
Yeah.
to do that, and then we're going to go into the fabric itself, looking into how silk was made, how silk is produced, and how they were actually dyed to produce
Nice.
the colour.
All
And we're
right.
going to go into the sewing needle and the pins, because none of that adds up at all. Then we're going to discuss the corset. So some of you men
Awesome.
might be interested, but I tell you what, women, you need to watch that one because, boy, have we been duped. That's all I'm going to say. We've been duped, duped, duped.
All right.
So yeah, we're going to go into all of that, and yeah, it's going to be a fun
It'll be a
ride.
fun little thing. All right. Well, there you go. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that
Thank
one.
you.
Make sure you give it a like, share it around, all that stuff that I never say that I'm supposed to say. And
Yes, subscribe and like.
subscribe and like. And we'll see you all back next week for part 2 of
Beautiful.
fashion. Geez, what are we going to call this one? Fascist
Ooh.
fashion.
What about the looted Renaissance?
The looted Renaissance. Yeah, the looting. Our
The
stolen
looting.
past.
Yes.
The king is wearing no clothes.
The stealing continues.
All right, guys.
Bye,
Stay
everyone.
awesome. We'll talk to you on the next
Love you
upload.
all.
Bye for now.
Bye.